gosh, I know some purists are probably, oh my goodness. Hey y'all, I want to start by saying that my brothers and my husband are doing some work outside and our fan is going because it's 100 degrees outside. Bless their souls. I hope they get it all done soon because we are at peak sunrise. I really want to get this out because I have been so excited to document as well as share this journey when it comes to sourdough. I've always been curious, my goodness, I'm starting out great, about sourdough and yearn to make a loaf myself. So naturally I took it upon myself to do some research so that I could finally, put that notch on my belt. My issue was a lack of equipment. I didn't have a Dutch oven, a cast iron, a scale, a proofing basket, what are they called, bannetons? I'm pretty sure I just slaughtered that, but I had no razor for scalding the bread, and I couldn't even try to think of the type of flour that I wanted to get to use, because apparently all-purpose isn't good enough to purists. I didn't think I could bake sourdough without any of these things, nor did I think there was any wiggle room. But then I started to question how people did it back in the day, before scales were even a thing, before everyone worried about doing everything by weight, and before it had to be almost perfect, or at least look almost perfect and look beautiful and just have this certain set way of being done. After some time in some Facebook groups and my time with Dr. Google, plus a splash and dash of my husband's creativity, Bartholomeal was born. I am not a professional, okay? I am not even a novice, I would say. I am barely a beginner. So before I continue with what I'm about to say, I am throwing this out here for the umpteenth time. I really didn't know where to begin when it came to sourdough. Do I need to look into a recipe before I start looking into the type of equipment I can use that I do have on hand, or do I need to be aware of the type of flour that I have and look into how that flour can suffice, since I'm not using einkorn or wheat or unbleached? Where do I begin? So I first looked into how I could make my starter, and between the Facebook groups and the articles and blog posts and suggestions that came up on Pinterest, I made my own starter by combining a half a cup of flour and a fourth of a cup of warm water. I don't weigh anything. It's just straight up a half cup and a fourth cup. Sometimes Bart gets fed with all-purpose. Sometimes Bart gets fed with bread. Flour, of course, not actual bread. He gets fed with flour. And bread flour does tend to have a pretty nice rise, and it gets fairly bubbly compared to regular all-purpose flour that most people tend to get at the store. And for that reason, as well as the science behind it that I'm not gonna get into, whenever I do miss a day, which I did look into, and since I, do it the way I do it, it can be a whole lot more forgiving than some people claim. Like, if you miss a day, it isn't going to completely kill your starter. Sometimes I've missed 3 days, if I'm being completely honest. I think 3 days maximum is the most I've missed, and I've been able to keep my starter alive still. With those types of times, that is when I go with the bread flour to give it that extra kick that all-purpose flour would just take more time to do. It is possible to do with all-purpose flour. I've done it as well, but I prefer sometimes to just kick it in a high gear because I was trying to get Bart as sour as I could before I baked with them. I even tested out the method of putting my starter in the fridge since I wasn't using it like that. With that, you're supposed to feed it and then put it in the fridge, and you feed it once a week, typically when you're going to use it. However, I wasn't using it. I was just trying to, I guess you could say, master my starter. I literally did this for like a whole month of me not keeping it in the fridge, however, going through a process of just feeding it so it would get nice and sour and get a nice bubblage to it, a nice rise, and a nice age. My husband would not give me a break. He kept coming for me for it. And actually, I had to test all of this out twice, which is why this is taking me so long, and I am pregnant in the beginning versus whenever I'm actually baking it, I have had our baby. Because the first starter that I made, our cat somehow got in the kitchen and got fur all over the place, and like a specific part in the kitchen. Yes, she goes in the kitchen sometimes, I'm sure, whenever we're not home, but for the most part, she knows she's not welcome in the kitchen, and her little butt went in there and did whatever she did. So I had to make a second starter after some time and followed the same method, if you will, of feeding my starter every day, or sometimes every other day. Oh my gosh, the baby noises. As for the recipe that I followed to make the actual sourdough loaf, I will link it in the description box. It was super simple. I did not have any issues with it, except for, typical, I guess, mom brain things, because I was trying to figure out when to use the starter, when to scoop some out so that I could go about my baking business. However, after doing it, I realized I overcomplicated it. But it was so easy. I firmly believe that anyone could do it because it was so easy, and I cannot wait to do it again. The only issue I had was that I forgot I did not have Miracle Whip on hand. I don't like mayonnaise, and I only had a drop of mustard, and it was not enough to suffice a sandwich for myself. To the person who may be wondering if it is possible to get you a beautiful sourdough loaf like we tend to see in those aesthetic photographs, yes, it is totally possible without all the special equipment or special flours. You may not get necessarily the same results, especially on the first try. I've seen some people, especially in those Facebook groups, oh my goodness, they are so talented. Granted, I've just started baking and stuff last year. Now it is time for the true test. Does it taste good? As much as it smells good. I don't want to talk with my mouth full. I don't want to talk too loud either because my son is sleeping. But I can't wait to get experimental with this sourdough. This is so good. That is going to do it for me. I cannot wait to see what it is that we get in 2 minutes. I hope y'all try this. Not necessarily this sandwich, but sourdough.